And one thing I've been following you on social media, you have something called the Wolf Pack, and it's inspiring, man. Because usually, when I see you and you're up running the mountains and the hills, and you're at the summit and the peaks of the mountains, I'm like, man, th- this guy is so positive and inspirational. I mean, you truly are, and you're very humble about it too. But you truly talk the talk and you walk the walk, and your perspective is amazing. So there's a quote that prior to meeting with you this morning, I read, and it's pretty famous, but it reminds me of perspective and what you have accomplished so far, and the many things you are continuing to accomplish. So this quote is: two men looked out through prison bars. One saw mud, the other saw stars. And I think that is a succinct but powerful way of capturing what perspective is, because that's isn't that what life is about? You can be downtrodden, because life can give us some chingazos. I mean, we're gonna get beat down for sure, but
Amen.
but we have the choice as men to keep our head down, keep our heads down in the sand, or look up at the stars, and just howl like the wolf pack. And so that's something that was very encouraging about reuniting with you and following you on Instagram. But I want to go back to this whole thing that how we even met, because it had been what, like over a decade since I last saw you.
Yeah.
So we,
Too
yeah,
long.
it was
Too
way too
long.
long,
Too
too
long for you.
long. But yeah, so we were in San Antonio. We met up with a group of guys, and then we had the idea for this. So
Absolutely. And you know that's really interesting you said that. We were away for a while, right? I mean, we communicate a little bit in social media and kind of every now and then, maybe every year or two, we would, catch up in that medium. But when I saw you, Frank, and you offered, we were able to connect and we were able to reconnect, right? I think we hit the ground running. And the impressive part of that evening, I think, was really the genesis of this conversation was that we were able to talk about things that sometimes are not talked about, right? And um, especially this thing we're talking about now, perspective. We were talking about how we as men encounter difficulties, and then how we have been able to look at those difficulties, right? Either how complex or how big, in a way that has resonated with an opportunity for us to get better. And I think that conversation would really led to a lot of things in my thinking about how we refrain sometimes from having those conversations, even as men. I mean, I
yeah,
can't think of besides the wolf pack, which I'll talk about here in a second, but besides, these conversations we're having now and the one we had then, it's few and far between that I have conversations with men about difficulties in life, about perspective, about everything, even like love, marriage. And you look around and you see all of this dysfunction. You see all of this negativity, right? And sometimes you see a lot of anger and really just people having being depressed, anxiety. I mean, you name it, man. It's out there. And what these conversations do and what it did for me, and I appreciate you for having that with me that one night, is it ignites something in me. It almost allows me to understand that things will get better. There is hope, and that we can get through things. And mind's very powerful. How we look at things, the blessings that we have. Hell, I'm blessed to be here with you. I'm
that's
looking
my man.
forward to it. We've been trying to connect for 3 weeks. Look how complex that was. But just being here, waking up and saying, you know what, I'm gonna be there. It wasn't a chore. It wasn't something else I had to do. I wanted to do it from my heart. And I think it really lifted me and gives me an opportunity to talk about things that I think are important and talk with you and learn from you, Frank. So absolutely, I think that that meeting we had, or that I don't know what we got to come up with a better name for the meeting, but it was I think I think it was what do you call that word, Frank?
Catalyst,
Yeah,
catalyst. It was turning
or
point.
even more romantic than that. It was destiny that we were able
Yes.
to be at that right time at the right place, because yeah, it did start some good things. What did you think about that night? I know that you had a lot to say that night.
Yeah, well, one of the questions that you stumped all of us in a positive way,
Yeah.
because like you said earlier, men, we don't really go beyond superficial stuff. I mean, yeah, we'll talk about football, we'll talk about sports, maybe we'll talk about politics every now and then, but for the most part, we're very surface based, and we just very tip of the iceberg. So to delve deep into the masculine heart, the masculine soul, that is something that you rarely find. Okay. And so when you brought up the question, you asked all of us a question. Think about your happiest time, your most joy-filled time when you just had pure bliss. Man, you stumped all of us in a positive way because it got us to think and to truly reflect on what really matters. Because at the end of the day, you put your head down, you're working your tail off, 40, 60-hour work weeks. But when you lay your head down at night and you're lost in your thoughts, and you just realize what really matters, and it's those people, it's not the things, man, it's the people in our lives who build us up. Iron sharpens iron, name of this podcast, because I really believe, and one of my favorite quotes, again, I'm big on quotes, is you are the average of the 5 people you interact with. All right. And so as a man, I want to become the best that I can be because this life is way too short. We have choices every single day to become the best, to become better or bitter. And this perspective is just giving me the insight to become better. And it's by uh, joining men such as yourself, who role models. And you were saying that you learn from me. Well, it goes both ways, brother. It's mutual, man. I mean, I'm inspired. I learned from you as well. And it's just great. So that night was just amazing. And then we had the idea of coming on, you're a natural. This is your first time, but you're in front of thousands of people as a school leader. So this is just phenomenal. I mean, like you said, this is not a chore. This is something that finally came to fruition. Thank God. So
Well, I'm glad we did it.